Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, will hear arguments this morning in a historic case involving Donald Trump and his claim of absolute presidential immunity. Trump's legal team argues presidents have immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts taken while in office. Special counsel Jack Smith's office contends presidents are not above the law and that even if they're eligible for immunity for some official acts, Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election was not an official presidential act. Trump's immunity claim already has been rejected by two lower courts, and the special counsel argues justices should send the case back to U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan to begin that trial. Lisa, what do you expect to hear in court today? And what we've heard so far is that perhaps these justices, even the conservative justices, are very skeptical of the idea that a president is immune from anything.
I think what I'm looking for in terms of today's argument is to hear how much allowance certain of the justices might give to the idea that presidential immunity is appropriate in certain cases, and to listen to hear whether they're trying to make a decision solely in this case that sort of reserves for themselves the right to make a broader ruling on presidential immunity at a later point in time. For example, they could say Trump is absolutely not immune based on the allegations of this indictment. Whether a former president can be criminally immune is something we would decide at a later date when the facts present itself. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that Jack Smith's folks spend a lot of time on their heels in the back end of their reply brief, which is where they cover all the contingencies. I'll call it the even if section of their brief. If they end up in that territory for a lot of their argument, even if, for example, certain of these things are official acts, there are others that are not official acts. Even if he has immunity for official acts, we can still consider evidence of those official acts as part of the largely private conspiracy. Those kinds of arguments, if the justices drag them into that territory, you know that this is not going to trial anytime soon.
So, Sam Stein, let me read you the lead editorial in the Wall Street Journal today, talking about the Supreme Court must consider the presidency, not merely the fate of one former president. They write this: the burden on the justices will be finding a balance that recognizes the unique duties of the presidency, while also holding presidents accountable for genuine law breaking. A president needs to be free to make controversial decisions without having to worry that he'll be prosecuted for them after he leaves office, but he shouldn't be free to commit crimes that are unrelated to the office. And then they go back to Nixon v. Fitzgerald, 1982, where the Supreme Court ruled that the president has absolute immunity from civil lawsuits for acts within the outer perimeter of his presidential duty. So that is the question here. Did what Donald Trump do, if you're looking at Nixon, could you define what he did in and around January 6th as being in the outer perimeter of the presidency? Of course, for you or me, and I think most people watching would say, of course not. But that certainly is the question the Supreme Court has to be careful with, because, again, whatever holding they come down with will be applied to future presidents as well. And we don't want every president leaving office being indicted by a hostile Justice Department.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously an extremely weighty case. Even if it's the designs to get it to the Supreme Court were not weighty at all. And by that, I mean, it's very evident that the Trump's legal team wanted to do this just to throw sand in the gears and to delay their trial until after the election. Now, as to the specifics, you know, Jack Smith's operation has been very clear. The stuff that happened on January 6th is inherently not about the acts of the presidency because Trump had lost. I mean, he had lost the election, and so therefore it is not a presidential act, and therefore he should not get immunity for it. Whether the justices see it that way is a whole nother matter. But look, I think this is pretty evident that what's happening here is that Trump's team wants to just muck things up. I don't think that there's anything more to it. They want to delay it. They want to get this out from the election, and ideally they want to see Trump win and then just dispense with the matter. But I think the Journal's editorial, there's nothing inherently debatable or objectionable about it. Of course, presidents should have some level of immunity for acts they take in office. The question is whether it should be blanket immunity. I think in that front, the vast majority of the legal profession is on one side saying, no, there should not be blanket immunity.
And muck things up, of course, is a very technical legal term that
Yes.
Sam has just
Yes.
given.
I studied law for many years to come up with that term. Yeah.
And your money paid back, Sam. Well done. Good investment.
And joining us now from outside the Supreme Court is former acting U.S. Solicitor General and MSNBC legal analyst Neil Katyal.
Hey, Neil, thanks so much for being with us. Main editorial in the Wall Street Journal has an overall theme, I think, that you and I would agree with. And I think most people would agree with it. Yes, an election is involved here, but much more is at stake for future presidents. So let me just read a little bit from this and get your insight on it. The burden on the justices will be finding a balance that recognizes the unique duties of the presidency while also holding presidents accountable for genuine law breaking. A president needs to be free to make controversial decisions without having to worry that he'll be prosecuted for them after he leaves office. But he shouldn't be free to commit crimes that are unrelated to the office. Then they talk about Nixon v. Fitzgerald and how the Supreme Court in that 82 case talked about how presidents should be protected. And, Neil, they talk about even to the outer perimeter of presidential duties. So help define that for us in your thinking, the outer perimeters of presidential actions and how the January 6 actions are still outside that perimeter.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court has said in Nixon versus Fitzgerald that presidents have immunity in civil lawsuits, or at least former presidents, for actions taken that are official acts. And that's done for good reason. Anyone can file a civil lawsuit against anyone, and that's what the court said there. But the U.S. Supreme Court, Joe, has never, ever said anything like what Trump is saying here. When Trump claims absolute immunity, here's what that means in plain English. I, Donald Trump, can do anything I want, and the law, even the criminal law, can't touch me. And so, as was just shown in the Laura's package a moment ago, President Trump's lawyer said that it's fine for him to go and assassinate a political rival using Navy SEAL Team 6. That has never been the law. It's ridiculous. Trump says, oh, that means you won't have a presidency. No, you just need a president who doesn't commit crimes, which isn't a hard thing to do. We've had over 40 of them without any problem. Supreme Court's never said any of those 40 have absolute immunity. So this is actually a really easy case. I'm going to go walk in there and listen to it. Oral argument is supposed to be slated for an hour. I suspect it'll be a bit longer than that. But at the end of the day, the answer to this question is really, really painfully easy. And it's a little weird that we're all standing here waiting for the Supreme Court to decide a question that I think every serious constitutional scholar thinks the answer to is obvious. And by that, I mean not just every constitutional scholar, but even a prominent lawyer back in January 2021 who stood on the Senate floor and said, don't impeach President Trump. The remedy is to indict him after he leaves office. That person was Donald Trump's own lawyer in the impeachment proceedings.
And Neil, you've kind of anticipated my question, which is, this is not a nuanced argument that's being made by Trump's team here. They're saying absolute immunity. It's hard for an outside observer, you don't have to really be a legal scholar, just an outside observer to see how that would make any sense at all. So what is the best hope here for the team that's making that argument on behalf of Donald Trump?
I don't think that they have a chance in winning this case. I think what they have a chance of is getting a justice or two to write a dissent or a concurrence that'll slow down the writing of this opinion. And if they can slow it down enough, the hope is then Judge Chutkan, who's presiding over Donald Trump's January 6th trial, will be forced to schedule the trial after the election. And so the American people then will not get to hear all of the evidence against Donald Trump. And Liz Cheney had an important piece in the New York Times this week in which she said, look, Supreme Court, decide this thing fast because Jack Smith has used the grand jury to uncover all sorts of information against Donald Trump that I, Liz Cheney, and the other members of the January 6th committee did not have. And so the only way to get that in front of the American people is to have a trial before the election. So the stakes here aren't just about what the decision will say at the Supreme Court. The more important stakes are when is the court going to say it.
So, Neil, I'm not even a simple country lawyer, and I don't know if this is possible, but given that time is of the essence here, and this is about delays or trying to get this trial happening speedily, is it possible for the Supreme Court to say, OK, we need to deliberate this further, because it does look like there might be some divisions over this from some of the more conservative members, but in the meantime, Jack Smith's trial can go ahead, that we could, I don't know, could they lift the stay while they make the decision? Is that even possible?
It's such a smart question, and the answer to that is yes. The court did it at least once, to my knowledge, in 1942 in the trial of the Nazi saboteurs. They said the trial can go forward, a decision to come later, and the decision took some months. That was very much controversial on the court and outside the court. I don't think they want to repeat that process. So instead, the better thing to do is for the court to issue a quick decision. They've been able to do that in any number of cases, including Bush versus Gore. I was a junior lawyer on that. I remember the decision came out within maybe 24, 48 hours or so. So they can move fast when they want to. And I really, really hope the Supreme Court does. This has already been a long delay for briefing. They set 7 weeks for briefing, which was an extravagantly long time. This show needs to get on the road for the American people.
Yeah, you're going to be asked about this throughout the day. Breaking news, the New York Appeals Court overturns Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction from the landmark Me Too trial, written by Michael Sisek with the AP. New York's highest court on Thursday overturned Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction, finding the judge at the landmark Me Too trial prejudiced the ex-movie mogul with improper rulings, including a decision to let women testify about allegations that were not part of the case. Harvey Weinstein is, though, of course, he's in jail in Los Angeles after being convicted of rape in 2022. Other charges there. So he will still be in jail there. But this case, which came 4 years ago, reversed. More legal. Yeah, more legal.
More on that to come. So it has been more than 200 days since 23-year-old Israeli-American Hersh Goldberg Polin was taken captive by Hamas. Hersh was one of hundreds captured by the terrorist group during the attack at the Supernova Music Festival on October 7th. Now, months later, Hamas has released a new video of Hersh. The video made public this week shows Hersh addressing lawmakers and his family.
קוראים לי הירש גולדברג פולין, אמא, אבא, ליבי ואורלי. אני אוהב אתכם מאוד, אני מתגעגע אליכם מאוד, ואני חושב עליכם בכל יום שאני נמצא פה.
Joining us now is Hersh's mother, Rachel Goldberg Polin. Rachel, I don't even know how to ask you this. I just want to see if you can tell us whatever it is that you're willing to share, how you're holding up, what you saw in that video of your son, what he said, your reaction.
Well, I'm sure that anyone who is a mother or anyone who's ever had a mother in their life can imagine, you know, this could be your son. And this was extremely emotional for us, obviously, to see that Hersh is alive after 201 days of, you know, in these horrible conditions. You see that his arm, which was, you know, amputated spontaneously from a grenade attack when he was just with his friends, his best friend from childhood. They went to a concert for peace, love, and unity, and he ended up with this life-altering, you know, injury and stolen from his life, from us. It's been nothing but trauma. And so obviously we were very emotional and overwhelmed to see that he is alive. And on the other hand, we as parents, you know, all of us, like, we can see he is clearly medically compromised. He is clearly medically fragile. And he's reading. I don't know, you know, it's the interesting thing is it's in Hebrew and our language is English. We only communicate with him in English. So I was thrilled to hear his voice and to see him, and we were overcome with emotion, as you were just now, choking up just even imagining, what we're going through.
Yeah.
And Mika yesterday gasped and yelled, "Oh my God!" And I came running in, and it was because we saw your son, and you just said any mother that went through this, or any mother would understand what you were going through. I just can't imagine those feelings, but I am curious. Do you want to?
Well, I saw that video, of course, obviously the first time before we interviewed you. I watched the unedited version much longer, and that's why I gasped, because I wasn't sure if he would make it. At the same time, Rachel, is there any way of knowing, are they able to get from this video and from what they see of his injuries, when this video was taken, what information were you able to glean about the timing of this video and his status?
Well, it seems, according to intelligence, that is, this massive group of Americans and Israelis who are working on this, they believe that this was made in the last couple of days. And they believe that they can see, they have like a medical team that specializes in analyzing things through a screen that they believe from the stump that used to be his left forearm, that it does look like it was about 6 months ago. So this, they feel, is extremely recent.
Willie, I'll pass it to Willie Geist. And Willie, just a reminder for all those people who are glorifying Hamas and holding up pro-Hamas signs, and while Jewish students try to walk to class, that's just a reminder. I'm not sure what Hamas was trying to do. I'm glad the video's out, because obviously I know Rachel and the family are so relieved he's alive. But that's just a reminder, once again, of October 7th. A son goes to a concert for peace, and he is attacked by terrorists, and Jewish kids slaughtered. And there's still Jews that are still being held hostage, which Hamas could end this tomorrow. Hamas could end this tomorrow if they chose to. They just don't want to.
Yeah, you don't have to be a mother or a father. You just have to be a human being to have a little gasp when you see that video. And I guess a little gasp of hope, I think, for all of us, Rachel. I can't imagine what you felt when you first saw the video. There he is. There's Hersh, the extraordinary young man we've talked to you about so many times on this show. It was wonderful to see his face. And there's reporting that this came about, the White House putting some pressure on Qatar to get Hamas to do something, some kind of a gesture. Now, this is just a gesture at this point, but what more would you ask of President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu and nations like Qatar, not just to see a video of Hersh, but to bring him and the rest of the hostages home?
Well, first, I just want to make one clarification, because I think one of the hugest errors that's made in the media is that these 133 remaining hostages are all Jewish. They are not. They are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, and Buddhist, and they hail from 25 different nations. So I just really want to make that clear, because I think one of the worst injustices that we do is when we erase the actual identity of who is being held. So I just want to clarify that. And when you ask about, what I would say to President Biden, first of all, I know from the first conversation that we, the families, had with President Biden on October 13th, that he is someone who so cherishes family. I know he lost his dear son, Bo, a number of years ago to a horrible disease. I know that Bo was his oldest son, who changed him from being a person into being a father. Hersh is my eldest child. I often talk about how Hersh changed me from being a person and a woman into being a mother, which is really my identity and how I go through life. And I know that President Biden met Abigail yesterday for the first time, who was the 4-year-old little girl who was held hostage and released in the first release. And I would pray and hope that I get to introduce my Hirsch to President Biden soon as well, being someone who's clearly medically fragile and compromised. And I'm extremely worried about him. And I am appreciative that people are pulling levers and using leverage, but clearly not enough, because if it was enough, then these people would be home. And so I would beseech everyone in power to push harder. And while, yes, obviously, I am very happy to see that Hirsch is alive, I want my only son home. And it has been more than 6 months. It's 202 days. And every single other hostage family feels the same out of the 133, including, we have 8 U.S. citizens being held, and only 5 of them are left alive now. And every day longer that they're there, that number can dwindle. So while I'm so appreciative and so grateful, and I feel blessed that we've gotten so much support, we need more.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you do. And anyone watching or walking by their TV and saying, I can't imagine, how can she do this? How is she doing this, given what she's going through? Rachel is doing this for her son. She has no choice. It's for Hirsch. And we want that moment for you as well, Rachel. We want you to introduce your son to President Biden. We want to see that happen. Rachel Goldberg Polin, thank you for coming on. Thank you for fighting.
We really appreciate
We're with
it.
you.
Thank you.